She was asking for help. In 1981, a terrible tragedy took place in a small mining village in the southern United States. A worker killed his entire family, not even sparing his little daughter. The horrible events continued after the man had been arrested. Under strange circumstances, people had started to go missing in the village. Samantha stared out of the window at the passing cars and poles. Her husband Nicholas kept grumbling that none of the children in the orphanage were normal. "You're too picky, Nick. Why didn't you like the kid in the cowboy hat, or the girl with pigtails? This is the third orphanage already." "I am picky?" he asked angrily. "I am not the problem here, Samantha." He bit his tongue, but it was too late. Samantha turned away, closing her eyes. Her inability to have kids was killing her enough as it was. That's why she had suggested they adopt a child from an orphanage. But Nick hadn't liked anyone once again. "I can't wait to get home," he said sullenly instead of apologizing. And then he turned off the road into a barely noticeable path. "The GPS says we can take a shortcut here." Samantha got worried and suggested they take the usual route, but Nick just snorted. The old forest closed in around them, and the trees blocked the weak autumn sun. It immediately grew darker. A thick fog was swirling between the trees. Samantha didn't like that forest. It was clear that the road was rarely used because there were a lot of fallen branches and trunks on the ground. She turned on the radio to listen to music or news. Nick braked and checked the GPS. Damn it, this makes no sense. Where had the road gone? Where had I missed a turn? It's all your fault for distracting me with your music. Samantha felt indignant, but her husband irritably waved her away. He pointed to a building between the trees and got out of the car, saying that he would ask the locals for directions. Samantha didn't want to stay alone and followed him. The small village looked desolate. Samantha thought that such villages used to be built near mines and factories. Nick went to look for the sheriff's office or mayor's office, and Samantha was left to her own devices. She noticed a nice 2-story house in the fog. There was a tree with a swing in front of it. Samantha had always wanted to live in a house like that after having a child. As she got closer, she noticed that the house was fenced with old police tape that had apparently been there for a long time already. She wondered what could have happened there. Curiosity got the better of her, and she went inside the house. There was almost no furniture in it, and the floor was covered with a thick layer of dust. Samantha saw wooden toys and children's drawings scattered all over the floor. Clouds, trees, and animals had been drawn with charcoal. Apparently a miner and his family had lived in that house. Then, a photo on the table caught her attention. She saw a family of 5 with a girl standing in the center. The man's face was scratched and smeared with something black. Samantha felt a little creeped out and headed to the exit. The house didn't seem so wonderful anymore. Suddenly she heard a rustle behind her. "Who's there?" She blurted out. She looked around. Her heart was pounding like crazy. Someone was standing in the shadow of the stairs leading to the second floor. Samantha looked closer. It seemed like she could make out a silhouette of a girl in a sundress. "What are you doing here, honey?" She wanted to sound confident, but there was still fear in her voice. The girl didn't reply and slowly walked towards Samantha. Her head was lowered, her hair covered her face, and she was holding a teddy bear stained with coal. She was coming closer with small steps. The closer she got, the stranger her walk seemed. "I'm cold," said the girl emotionlessly. "Where's my mom?" Samantha backed away, fear slowly spreading through her body. Something about the girl's appearance didn't sit right with her. It seemed unnatural. Why was she all alone in an abandoned house? Her parents couldn't have left her there. Wait, I'll call my husband and we'll help you. She dropped the photo and quickly ran out of the house, feeling the girl's gaze on her back. Nick immediately called out to her, annoyed by something. Where have you gone off to? I've been calling you. We are leaving. The village is abandoned. Samantha said that she had seen a girl in the house and needed to help her. Nick looked at his wife intently and frowned. Then he told her he had seen a newspaper clipping about that house on the wall of the empty police station. A miner had gone crazy, Samantha, in the 1980s. He was eventually caught and his family, including the girl, was buried in the cemetery. So stop making things up. You haven't seen anyone. Let's go. Samantha turned pale, and everything inside her turned cold. She looked back at the house. It couldn't be. Who had she seen in the house then? Who had she been talking to just then? Nick thought that the whole village had gone crazy after that incident. The mine had run dry. In the end, everyone had left. It's about time we go out of here too, he grumbled. There's nothing for us in this ghost village. Near the car, Nick froze down. He clenched his fists angrily. Did you do this, Samantha? He asked angrily. She didn't understand what he was talking about at first, but then took a closer look and the windows and door handles were covered with small, cool black handprints. It was as if someone had walked around the whole car, looking inside and trying to open the doors. Nick realized that Samantha was just as scared as him, opened the door and quickly got into the car. The engine roared to life. They started to drive away. Nick turned on the headlights to see through the fog. Maybe somebody does live in the village, and their children wanted to steal something. And you really have met someone's daughter, said Nick. But Samantha could see that he didn't believe it himself. Samantha turned her head and looked closer. She thought she had seen a silhouette in the dark forest. She looked around. What was it? It couldn't be. Through the rear window she made out a silhouette of the girl among the trees. It seemed she was looking straight at Samantha. The fog was swirling around her, almost making her blend in with the trees. But how had she got there so quickly? Children couldn't run so fast. Children that were alive, that is. Samantha felt goosebumps on her skin. Her palms were sweating. She wanted to leave that place as quickly as possible. She was glad that Nick had sped up. All of a sudden, he braked and cursed. There was a car on the road in front of them, and it was impossible to go around it because of the trees. Nicholas pulled a baseball bat from under the seat and got out of the car. Samantha shouted for him to be careful, but he didn't answer. She watched Nick slowly approach the driver's seat of that car, knock, and look through its dusty window. At first, he just stared, as if unable to understand what he was looking at. Suddenly, Nick staggered back and dropped the bat. He ran back. There was genuine horror on his white face. Samantha, call the police now! She saw how scared he looked and asked what he had seen. Nick refused to answer and, in a trembling voice, once again told her to call the police. While she was doing that, Nick locked all the doors. The phone isn't working, said Samantha. There is no signal. At that moment, there was a light knock on the window on the right. Samantha screamed and clung to Nick. Behind the door on her side was that girl from the house. Are you my new mommy? Let's draw together, asked the child quietly. Do you have crayons? I only have coal. As if fascinated, Nick and Samantha watched the girl slowly draw a black sun on the grass. The serenity with which she did it scared them out of their minds. Samantha clung to her husband's arm. Nick pushed her away, hit the gas and quickly drove around the car, knocking off its left wing mirror. Samantha only had the time to notice a crouching silhouette behind its dirty window. "Damn it," shouted Nick. "Ghosts aren't real. We need to get out of this forest. You shouldn't have talked to her in that house. It's all your fault." Samantha was on the verge of hysterics. All that had separated her from that girl had just been a door. What if Nick hadn't locked it just a minute before that? Samantha put her head in her hands. Would that creature haunt them forever now? Nick, meanwhile, used his phone to call 911. There were beeps, and then we got disconnected. Nick hissed with fear and anger, but did not stop driving. The radio suddenly turned on, and the lullaby started to play loudly. Samantha, whose heart was pounding madly in her chest, watched in shock as the volume increased itself. The song was unbearably loud. Samantha put her hands over her ears and screamed, "Twinkle, twinkle, little star." Nick couldn't stand it and punched the radio twice. The plastic cracked. It made a plaintive squeak and fell silent. "Dumb forest, stupid village," the man muttered to himself. He was sweating profusely. Nick drove without slowing down before pits or logs. After a return, the forest parted and a lot of cars suddenly appeared ahead. Nick slowed down. At first, they were happy they would meet people. But then, Nick rolled down the window and pulled himself up on the seat to take a closer look at them. But Samantha had already realized that they had arrived at a dead end. They were on a large clearing surrounded by trees. Cars were parked here and there with their doors open. Motionless figures could be seen in some of them. No, I won't give up like this," said Nick resolutely and put the car in reverse. But then it abruptly stalled. The headlights went out and the electronics turned off. The darkness of the forest instantly closed in around them. All attempts to restart the car had no results. Nick took a flashlight from the glove compartment and got out. He told Samantha to stay in the car. Nick walked around and opened the hood, and Samantha lost sight of him. It was quiet for a while. Samantha found herself thinking that it was perhaps too quiet. "Nick, what is going on there?" Silence. She didn't want to walk out into the darkness, but she had no other choice. She plucked up her courage and got out of the car. She went around it and froze. Because Nick wasn't in front of it. He was gone. Completely shocked, Samantha bent down and picked up the switched-off flashlight from the ground. Traces of coal were clearly visible on it. And then her heart sank. She heard quiet singing coming from the car. There was someone in the back seat. Then she heard the words, "Mommy, why would you want the angry daddy? He was always complaining. Let's play together. Don't you want to be my mom?" There was silence, in which the sound of the door opening was clearly heard. Samantha screamed and ran away. She didn't know where she was going, but wanted to be as far away from the car and what had come out of it as possible. Samantha kept running. Sometimes she called out to Nick, hoping that he had also escaped. Finally, she felt exhausted. Her breathing was uneven, but there was no end to the forest. As Samantha leaned against a tree to catch her breath, a voice came from right behind her. She froze, unable to move. "Where are you running, Mommy? I don't like this game. Let's play another one. It's just you and me now, forever." A cold child's hand slipped into hers. Samantha shrieked, and the forest fell into a dead silence.